Donovan King was the kind of man who believed love was just another business deal. At only 32, he had already built an empire in Houston, and people praised him for his success, his looks, and his cold confidence. His suits were always perfect, his cars were always new, and his name carried weight in every room. But Donovan's heart was locked. Growing up, he watched his mother walk away from his father after a stroke, and that moment taught him one painful lesson.
I've had enough. I'm
When
leaving.
life gets
Please
hard,
don't go. We can
people
fix
leave.
this.
There's nothing left.
Since then, Donovan trusted money more than emotions, and he convinced himself every woman wanted something from him. That was why he chose Simone Hart, beautiful, popular, and perfect for his image. But destiny was quietly preparing a different kind of woman, one who would enter his life by accident and change everything. Hello, Mr. Hope fans. This is another one. Let us sit and enjoy this amazing story. The late morning sun poured over Houston like warm gold, glinting off the glass towers downtown and turning the streets into ribbons of light. Donovan King, a sharp-jawed, well-dressed black American billionaire in his early 30s, sat behind the wheel of his matte black luxury car, jaw tight as he weaved through traffic. He owned King Consolidated, one of the fastest-growing investment and construction companies in Texas, but success hadn't softened him. If anything, it had hardened him into a man who trusted numbers more than people. His phone buzzed again. "Donovan, babe, you didn't reply," came the voice note from Simone Hart, his fiancée. Simone was a glamorous lifestyle influencer, always camera-ready, always trending, always dressed like a walking headline. To the world, she was his perfect match. To Donovan, she was complicated. He didn't play the message twice. He didn't need to. He already knew it would end with the same tone. Sweetness on top, pressure underneath. Donovan exhaled and focused on the road. He was already late for a board meeting, and his mind was doing what it always did when stress climbed, drifting backward into memories he never invited. He remembered his father, Raymond King, once strong and proud, slurring his words after the stroke. He remembered his mother, Celeste King, standing in the doorway with a suitcase, saying she couldn't live like this, then leaving Raymond behind like a broken piece of furniture. Donovan had been young, but not too young to understand what it meant. Since then, he'd believed one thing with his whole chest. When life gets hard, people leave, especially when the money stops looking easy. A sharp movement at the edge of the road snapped him back. Someone stepped off the curb. Donovan hit the brakes so hard the car jerked and the tires screeched. His heart slammed as the hood stopped inches from a young woman's knees. For a second, the world froze. Then the woman stumbled backward, eyes wide, breathing hard. Donovan threw his door open. "Are you out of your mind?" The woman didn't shout back. She didn't curse. She just stood there, shoulders slightly hunched, as if she expected the ground itself to reject her. She was a young black woman, about 20 maybe, wearing a faded hoodie and a worn backpack that looked heavier than it should. Her face was pretty, but exhaustion had dulled it. Hunger lived in her cheeks, and in the way she swallowed like she was trying to hold herself together. I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't see you." Donovan narrowed his eyes. "You didn't see a whole car?" Her gaze dropped. "I wasn't thinking." Something about the way she said it, like she truly didn't have the luxury of thinking, made Donovan's anger hesitate. "What's your name?" he asked, sharper than he meant. "Kiara Wells," she answered, voice small but steady. "And why are you walking into traffic, Kiara Wells?" She hesitated, then spoke like the truth was too heavy to carry alone. "I got put out this morning. The group home. They said I'm too old now. I'm 20. Donovan blinked. He'd heard of kids aging out, but hearing it like this, so plain, so final, hit different. "You got anywhere to go?" he asked. Kiara shook her head once. "No, sir." Her stomach betrayed her with a low rumble, loud enough that her eyes watered from embarrassment. Donovan looked away, annoyed, not at her, but at the uncomfortable tug in his chest. "Get in," he said, nodding toward the passenger side. Kiara startled. "What?" "I'm not leaving you on the street," Donovan replied, his tone rough like he had to argue with himself. "I'm taking you to eat. After that, we'll figure out the rest." Kiara's lips parted, as if she wanted to refuse out of pride, but hunger was louder. She nodded slowly and climbed into the car, holding her backpack like it was her last piece of safety. As Donovan pulled back into traffic, he told himself this was nothing, just a meal, just a ride. But somewhere deep down, a quiet truth whispered that his life had just shifted, one screech of brakes at a time. The following morning, Kiara woke up before her alarm because she didn't trust peace to last. For a moment she forgot where she was. The soft mattress, the clean sheets, the faint scent of lavender in the air. None of it matched the hard benches and cold corners she'd gotten used to. Then the memory returned. The near accident, the restaurant, the way Donovan King had stared at her like he couldn't decide if she was trouble or truth. Kiara sat up slowly and looked around the guest room. It wasn't flashy in a loud way. It was quiet luxury. Cream-colored curtains, a small desk, a vase of fresh flowers that made her chest tighten. Nobody had ever placed something beautiful in her space just because. She pressed her palm to her stomach. It was full for the first time in a long time. A gentle knock came at the door. "Morning, baby," a woman's warm voice called. Kiara opened it to find Ms. Bernice Caldwell, a tall, middle-aged black woman with a calm face and eyes that looked like they had seen storms and survived them. Ms. Bernice was the head house supervisor at the King Mansion, the one who ran the home like a business and kept order like a prayer. "I'm Bernice," she said kindly, stepping in just enough to be respectful. "Mr. King told me you'd be staying. You hungry?" Kiara's throat tightened. "Yes, ma'am. But I can work. I don't want to just—" "We don't do just in this house," Mrs. Bernice cut in, gently but firmly. "If you're here, you'll have structure, you'll earn, and you'll be safe, long as you follow the rules." Kiara nodded quickly. Ms. Bernice handed her a simple uniform, a neat black skirt, white blouse, and apron. "Bathroom is down the hall. After breakfast, I'll show you your duties. And Kiara—" "Yes, ma'am?" Ms. Bernice lowered her voice. "Don't let this place make you forget who you are. Big walls don't always mean big hearts." Kiara didn't understand fully, but she felt the warning settle into her bones. Downstairs, the dining room looked like something out of a movie. Long polished table, sunlight pouring through tall windows, silverware lined up like soldiers. Kiara ate quietly, trying not to make noise, remembering how Donovan had watched her eat yesterday, like hunger was a confession. Then she heard heels. The air changed. Simone Hart stepped into the room like she owned it, slim, elegant, and dressed in a fitted cream outfit that probably cost more than Kiara's entire wardrobe. Simone's long hair was perfectly styled, her nails flawless, her smile sharp enough to cut. She paused when she saw Kiara. Her eyes moved slowly from Kiara's uniform to her face. "And who is this?" Ms. Bernice kept her tone steady. "This is Kiara Wells. Mr. King hired her." Simone's brows lifted as if she'd been insulted. "Hired her for what?" "To help around the house," Ms. Bernice answered. Simone's lips curved, but there was no kindness in it. "Interesting. Donovan didn't tell me we were bringing strangers into our home." Kiara stood up quickly, respectful. "Good morning, ma'am. I'm sorry if I—" Simone held up a hand. "Save it. I'm not your ma'am. I'm his fiancée." Before Kiara could respond, Donovan entered, dressed in a crisp suit, tie perfectly straight, He looked like a man built for boardrooms and battles. His gaze flicked to Kiara, then to Simone. "Morning," he said, voice neutral. Simone walked to him immediately, looping her arm through his. "Babe, why is she here?" Donovan's eyes hardened slightly. "Because she needed work, and because I said so." Simone laughed lightly, the sound sugar-coated. "You're too kind. That's what I love about you." But when Donovan turned toward the coffee, Simone's eyes snapped back to Kiara. Cold, warning, calculating. Kiara felt it clearly then. She wasn't just a new worker. She was a problem Simone intended to solve. Later that day, Ms. Bernice toured Kiara through the mansion, showing her the laundry room, the kitchen schedule, the cleaning supplies, while speaking in a low, steady voice, like a teacher preparing a student for a hard exam. "Listen to me," Ms. Bernice said, as they passed a hallway lined with family photos. "Do your job, keep your head down, don't argue, and if anybody tries to twist your words, write it down. Date and time." Kiara swallowed. "Does that happen a lot?" Ms. Bernice didn't answer right away. She only glanced toward the direction Simone had disappeared. Then she said softly, "In houses like this, people don't always fight fair." 3 days after Kiara arrived, the mansion no longer felt like safety. It felt like a test she wasn't allowed to fail. Kiara moved quietly through her duties, following Ms. Bernice's schedule like it was scripture. She cleaned, folded linens, wiped down counters until they shined, and kept her eyes lowered whenever Simone was near. Still, trouble found her the way rain finds an open window. That afternoon, Kiara carried a tray of iced water and fruit into the sitting room, where Simone Hart lounged on a velvet sofa with her phone held high, recording herself as if the world needed constant proof that she existed. Beside her sat Tasha Hart, Simone's cousin, loud, flashy, and always wearing an expression that said she enjoyed watching people squirm. Tasha wasn't an employee or a guest in the polite sense. She came and went as she pleased, like the mansion was a free hotel. Simone didn't look up when Kiara entered. "Put it there," she said, pointing without turning her head. "Yes, ma'am," Kiara replied, placing the tray carefully on the coffee table. Simone's eyes finally lifted. "I told you yesterday, don't call me that." Kiara froze. "I'm sorry. I was trying to be respectful." Tasha snorted. "Respectful? Girl, you're lucky you even got a roof over your head. Don't get cute." Kiara's cheeks warmed, but she held her tone steady. "I'm not trying to be cute. I'm just doing my job." Simone set her phone down and stood, slowly, deliberately, like a queen rising to judge. "Your job," she repeated, stepping closer. "Let me make something clear, Kiara Wells. Donovan is kind, sometimes too kind. That kindness is not an invitation." Kiara's heart beat hard, but she didn't step back. "I'm not here for that. I'm grateful for work. That's all." Simone's smile widened, sharp at the corners. "That's all? Then you won't mind proving it." She reached for the tray and lifted one of the glasses of iced water. With one sudden flick of her wrist, she tipped it, so the water spilled straight onto the carpet. Kiara gasped. The carpet was pale and expensive, the kind of fabric that looked like it cost more than her entire life. Simone blinked innocently. "Oops!" Tasha covered her mouth like she was trying not to laugh. "Oh no, Kiara! Now what?" Kiara rushed for a cloth. "I can clean it." Simone grabbed her wrist, nails pressing into her skin. Her voice dropped, sweet and poisonous. "You will clean it, and you will do it quietly. If Donovan comes in here and asks why the carpet is wet, you're going to say it was your mistake." Kiara's throat tightened. "But I—" Simone leaned in closer, eyes cold. "Do you want to keep this job or not?" For a moment, Kiara's pride rose up like fire. Then she remembered the street, the hunger, the way her stomach had sounded in Donovan's car. Pride didn't feed you, so she nodded once. Yes. Simone released her wrist as if she'd done Kiara a favor. Good. Now hurry. You're making the room look messy. Kiara scrubbed the carpet on her knees, hands shaking. Ms. Bernice had warned her, but living it felt different, like swallowing stones. When Kiara finally finished, Simone sat back down and picked up her phone again. Tasha, take a picture, she said casually. I want to remember how hard work looks. Kiara's stomach turned. That evening, as Kiara carried laundry down the hallway, Donovan appeared from his office. He paused when he saw her rubbing her wrist. Everything all right? He asked. Kiara forced a smile. Yes, sir. Donovan studied her for a second, long enough that she feared he could see the truth behind her eyes. But then Simone's voice floated from the stairway, bright and fake. Donovan, babe, come see this idea for our engagement shoot. She linked her arm through his again, pulling his attention like a hook. As they walked away, Simone glanced back over her shoulder at Kiara, her smile still perfect. It was the look that said, I can hurt you and still look innocent doing it. That night, Kiara slipped out with Ms. Bernice to a small church nearby. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, soft music, friendly faces, and a peace that didn't demand anything from her. After service, Ms. Bernice introduced her to Pastor Leon Whitfield, a gentle, respected black pastor in his 50s with a steady voice and eyes that carried wisdom. Beside him stood First Lady Mariah Whitfield, graceful and motherly, the kind of woman who could correct you with kindness and still make you feel loved. Pastor Whitfield shook Kiara's hand. Ms. Bernice says you're a fighter. Kiara swallowed hard. I'm just trying to survive. First Lady Mariah squeezed her hand softly. Surviving is where it starts, baby, but God didn't bring you this far, just to keep you surviving. As Kiara walked back to the car with Ms. Bernice, the mansion waited in the distance, big, bright, and full of hidden battles. And Kiara realized something. If she wanted to last in that house, she would need more than strength. She would need faith. A week after Kiara started attending church, something subtle shifted inside the King mansion, like the air itself had learned a new secret. Kiara didn't suddenly become fearless, and Simone didn't suddenly become kind. But Kiara's spirit changed. She walked with a little more steadiness. She prayed before stepping into rooms, and when insults came, she didn't absorb them the way she used to. She released them, quietly, like Pastor Whitfield had taught her. One afternoon, Donovan came home earlier than usual. The mansion was calm, the kind of calm that only happened when Simone was out working and Tasha wasn't visiting. Kiara was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of simple chicken soup Ms. Bernice had asked her to prepare. The smell was warm and comforting, filling the air like a hug. Donovan paused in the doorway, loosening his tie. You cooked? He asked. Kiara turned, startled. Yes, sir. Ms. Bernice said you skipped lunch again. Donovan's mouth twitched like he wanted to deny it, but the smell betrayed him. He stepped closer, looking into the pot. Smells like something my grandma used to make. Kiara's shoulders softened. My foster mum used to make soup like this when I was sick. It made me feel safe. Donovan glanced at her, surprised by the word safe. In his world, safety was money and locks, not soup. He sat at the kitchen island while Kiara served him a bowl. For the first time, the distance between them didn't feel like a wall. Donovan ate slowly, then looked at her like he was trying to understand how someone with so little could still carry peace. You're different this week, he said. Kiara hesitated. Different how? Less shaken, Donovan answered. Like you found something. Kiara didn't want to sound preachy. She just spoke honestly. I found people who remind me that my life has value, even when I don't have anything to show for it. Donovan's eyes dimmed for a second, as if the statement poked a bruise he kept hidden. He nodded once. That's rare. The next day, Donovan surprised Kiara again, this time by asking her to ride with Ms. Bernice and him to deliver groceries and supplies to a local community center. It wasn't a charity event with cameras, no speeches, no photos, just quiet help. At the center, Kiara watched Donovan interact with the staff, serious, respectful, efficient, not cold, just careful. A little boy ran up and hugged Donovan's leg like it was normal. Donovan stiffened, then awkwardly patted the kid's head. Kiara smiled. Donovan noticed. What? He asked, defensive. Nothing, Kiara said softly. You're not as hard as you pretend. Donovan held her gaze for a moment, and something warm flickered between them. Quick, dangerous, real. That night, Simone returned. She stepped into the mansion glowing with confidence, carrying shopping bags and wearing a bright smile. But her eyes scanned the home like a detector, looking for changes she didn't approve of. She found one. In the kitchen, she noticed an extra grocery receipt on the counter from the community center run. Then she saw Donovan's jacket draped over a chair, the one he wore when he didn't want to be recognized. Simone's voice stayed sweet when she called out, "Donovan, babe?" Donovan appeared. "What's up?" Simone walked up and kissed his cheek, then turned her gaze toward Kiara, like Kiara was a stain on white fabric. "You've been busy." Kiara kept her eyes lowered. "I was just helping Ms. Bernice." Simone laughed lightly. "Of course you were." Later, when Donovan went upstairs to take a call, Simone cornered Kiara near the pantry. Her smile vanished. "You're getting comfortable," Simone whispered. Kiara's heart thumped, but she stood her ground. "I'm doing my job." Simone stepped closer. "Let me teach you something, Kiara. Men like Donovan don't fall for girls like you. They use people like you to feel good about themselves, and when they're done, they throw you away." Kiara swallowed. "That's not what I'm here for." Simone's eyes narrowed. "Good, because I'm not in the mood to share." The next morning, Kiara walked into the laundry room and froze. Her small envelope, where she kept the little cash Ms. Bernice paid her weekly, was ripped open on the table. Empty. Ms. Bernice entered behind her and immediately understood. Her face hardened and her voice dropped. "Somebody wants a story." Kiara's hands trembled. "I didn't take it out. I swear." "I know," Ms. Bernice said firmly, "but they're about to claim you did." Kiara felt the world tilt. "What do I do?" Ms. Bernice stepped closer, steady as a shield. "You do exactly what I told you from day one." She pressed a notepad into Kiara's palm. "Write down everything," she said. "Date and time. And remember, when lies get louder, you don't panic. You pray, and you stand." 2 days after Kiara's money went missing, Donovan's mansion felt like it was holding its breath. Ms. Bernice had helped Kiara search every corner of the laundry room and her small bedroom, not because they expected to find the money, but because they needed to be able to say they tried, calmly, carefully, and with proof. Kiara wrote everything down like Ms. Bernice instructed. The time she last saw the envelope, the exact place she kept it, who had been in the hallway that morning, even the moment Simone brushed past her without a word. Still, none of that stopped the tension from tightening like a knot. Simone played her part perfectly. When Donovan was around, she was sweetness and smiles. When he wasn't, she became a different person. Short comments, sharp stares, and quiet threats delivered with polished lips. That afternoon, Donovan came home late. His shoulders looked heavy, his eyes tired, and his phone was pressed to his ear as he walked through the grand entryway. "Yes, I understand. No, I'll handle it, he said, voice clipped. He ended the call and exhaled. Kiara, who was dusting near the staircase, couldn't help glancing up. Donovan noticed. Long day, he muttered. Kiara nodded. I hope tomorrow is better. He paused, like her words surprised him. You always talk like that, he said. Like what? Kiara asked softly. Like things can just get better, Donovan replied, his tone almost irritated, as if hope offended him. Kiara held his gaze. They can, maybe not fast, but they can. For a moment, Donovan stared at her like he wanted to argue, and then his expression shifted, almost vulnerable, before he turned away. That evening, Simone arrived dressed for a high-end event, sparkling earrings catching the chandelier light. She kissed Donovan quickly and asked, You coming or not? Everyone's expecting you. Donovan checked his watch. I'll meet you there. I have something to finish. Simone's smile tightened. You always have something. She left in a hurry, heels clicking like anger on marble. Later, as Kiara finished cleaning the kitchen, she saw Donovan pull on his coat. He looked distracted, like his mind was far away. He didn't even notice Mrs. Bernice watching him from the hallway with worried eyes. Drive safe, sir, Kiara said. Donovan gave a small nod. Good night. It should have been ordinary. It wasn't. An hour later, the phone rang, sharp, urgent, cutting through the quiet of the mansion. Ms. Bernice answered, and the color drained from her face. Her free hand trembled as she held the receiver tighter. Kiara stood frozen, stomach dropping before she even knew why. Yes, I understand, Ms. Bernice said, voice suddenly smaller. We're on our way. She hung up slowly and turned to Kiara. Get your coat. Kiara's voice shook. What happened? Ms. Bernice swallowed hard. Mr. King had an accident. The hospital lights were harsh and unforgiving. Kiara's hands were cold as she sat beside Ms. Bernice in the waiting area, watching doctors rush past like time didn't care about fear. Finally, a man in a white coat approached them. He was a black man in his 40s with tired eyes and a serious mouth. I'm Dr. Terence Maddox, he said, introducing himself clearly. I'm the rehabilitation specialist assigned to Mr. King's case. He survived the crash, but his spine took significant trauma. Kiara's breath caught. Is he going to walk? Dr. Maddox hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Right now, he can't feel his legs. We don't know yet what recovery will look like. We'll do everything we can. Kiara pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting tears. Then Simone appeared in the hallway like a storm, hair perfect, makeup flawless, but her eyes wild with anger more than worry. What do you mean he can't walk? Simone snapped at Dr. Maddox. How is that possible? He's Donovan King. Dr. Maddox's face remained professional. Ma'am, trauma doesn't care who a person is. Simone turned sharply to Miss Bernice and Kiara, and her gaze landed on Kiara like blame needed a target. Why is she here? Simone demanded. She's staff. Kiara stood, voice trembling but respectful. I came because I care about him. Simone scoffed. Care? Don't pretend. People like you always show up when there's something to gain. The words hit like a slap, because Kiara knew they weren't really about her. They were about Simone revealing her own heart. A nurse opened the door to the room. Family can go in for a moment. Simone rushed forward first, but when Kiara followed, Simone turned back and hissed under her breath. If this ruins my life, I'll make sure it ruins yours too. Kiara stopped in the doorway, staring at Donovan lying still in the hospital bed, machines humming around him. And in that moment, she understood something with painful clarity. The accident didn't just break Donovan's body, it exposed the truth of everyone standing around him. The following week, the King mansion felt colder. even though the lights were bright and the floors still shined. Donovan was brought home in a wheelchair, his posture stiff, his jaw clenched like he was holding his pride together with pure force. The man who used to move through rooms like he owned the air now sat silent, staring past people as if they were shadows. Ms. Bernice ran the house with even tighter order, making sure nurses rotated, medication stayed on schedule, and Donovan's privacy was respected. But the atmosphere changed every time Simone Hart entered. She didn't walk like someone worried, she walked like someone inconvenienced. The first night back, Simone stood in Donovan's doorway, her arms folded. "So, this is it?" she asked, her voice thin. "This is my fiancé now." Donovan didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the window. Simone stepped closer, lowering her tone as if kindness might appear if she whispered. "Donovan, I need to know what this means for us. The wedding, the future, my life." Donovan finally looked at her, his stare flat and exhausted. "My life," he repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. "I can't feel my legs, Simone." Simone let out a frustrated breath. "I get that, but you're still you. You're still Donovan King. We can't just fall apart because of one accident." Kiara, standing quietly near the doorway with a folded blanket, felt her chest tighten. One accident? As if pain was a schedule you could rearrange. When Simone noticed Kiara, her eyes narrowed. "Why is she always here?" she snapped. "I didn't ask for staff to watch our private conversations." Kiara swallowed and kept her voice respectful. "I was told to bring the blanket, ma'am." Simone's lips curled. "Stop calling me that." Donovan's voice cut through the tension, low and rough. "Leave her alone." Simone froze, surprised. Then her expression smoothed into a fake smile. "Of course, babe. I'm just stressed." But the moment she walked out, the warmth left with her. That week, Donovan shut down. He refused therapy exercises. He skipped meals. When Dr. Maddox called to check in, Donovan barely spoke. His anger sat on him like a heavy coat he couldn't take off. One afternoon, Kiara rolled him onto the back patio so he could get air. The sun was bright, but Donovan's face stayed dark. "I don't need a babysitter," he muttered. Kiara's hands tightened on the wheelchair handles, but she didn't raise her voice. "I'm not babysitting you," Donovan scoffed. "Then what are you doing?" Kiara stepped in front of him so he'd have to look at her. "I'm standing by someone who's hurting." Donovan's eyes flashed. "Why? Because you think I'm some charity project?" Kiara's voice softened. "No, because I know what it feels like to be thrown away when life gets hard." Something shifted in Donovan's expression. "Just a crack," Kiara continued, careful but honest. "You don't have to pretend you're okay, but you can't let this end you." Donovan looked away quickly, swallowing. His hands trembled slightly as they gripped the arms of the chair. That night, Kiara slipped out to church with Ms. Bernice. After service, Pastor Leon Whitfield, the calm, respected black pastor with steady eyes, pulled Kiara aside. "He's entering a night season," Pastor Whitfield said gently. "The kind where people can lose themselves." Kiara's throat tightened. "What do I do?" Pastor Whitfield placed a hand on her shoulder. "You keep showing up with love, you keep praying, and you keep wisdom close, because when darkness comes, the enemy doesn't only attack the body." When Kiara returned to the mansion, Simone's car was gone again. But Donovan was still awake, staring at the ceiling like sleep was afraid of him. Kiara paused in his doorway and spoke softly, more prayer than words. "I'm still here," she said, "and God is too." 2 weeks into Donovan's recovery, the mansion started to feel like a stage, quiet on the surface, but full of performances behind closed doors. Donovan had begun cooperating with small routines again. He still resisted the heavier therapy, but he allowed Kiara to help him with basic exercises, meals, and the long stretches of silence that came when pain settled deep. Ms. Bernice watched closely, balancing compassion with discipline, refusing to let the home slip into chaos. Simone, on the other hand, became a visitor in her own engagement. She came late, left early, and always had a reason. I had meetings. I had brand work. I had to clear my head. One afternoon, Ms. Bernice sent Kiara to the front gate to collect a delivery. As Kiara walked back through the side corridor, she heard laughter, low and familiar, coming from the library. The door was slightly open. Kiara slowed, not trying to spy, just caught by the sound. Inside stood Darius Cole, Donovan's so-called best friend, an athletic black man in his early 30s, charming, always smiling, and always acting like loyalty was his natural language. Darius had been around Donovan for years, calling him brother, showing up at parties, and claiming he respected their bond like family. But the way Darius stood close to Simone right then, too close, said something else. Simone's hand rested on Darius's chest as she laughed. "You're the only one who understands how suffocating this is," she said. Darius leaned in, voice soft. "You don't deserve to be stuck in a house playing nurse." Kiara's stomach tightened. Then Simone noticed movement in the hallway. Her head snapped toward the door, and her eyes met Kiara's. For a split second, Simone's face flashed with panic. Then it smoothed into poisonously calm confidence. Kiara stepped back quickly, pretending she hadn't seen anything. She turned and walked away, heart pounding like it wanted to run for her. Behind her, the library door clicked shut. That evening, Simone arrived at Donovan's room, carrying a bright smile and a gift bag, acting like she was the perfect fiancée again. Kiara stood by the dresser, organizing medication. Simone's tone was sugary. "Donovan, babe, I brought you something, a new watch, you know, to lift your mood." Donovan glanced at it without interest. "Thanks." Simone's smile tightened, then she looked at Kiara. "Can we have a moment, alone?" Kiara nodded. "Yes, Mom." Simone's eyes sharpened. "Don't call me that." Kiara swallowed. "Yes." When Kiara stepped into the hallway, she didn't go far. Ms. Bernice was at the other end, watching like she already knew something was wrong. Simone's voice floated out through the door, low, urgent. "Donovan, this isn't working. You've changed." Donovan's voice was steady, tired. "I got paralyzed, Simone. Of course I changed." Simone sighed dramatically. "I'm trying, okay? But everything is heavy. The house is heavy. Your mood is heavy. I need support too." A few minutes later, Simone stormed out, eyes glossy like she'd forced tears into them. She walked straight toward Kiara in the hallway and leaned close enough for only Kiara to hear. "I saw you," Simone whispered, smile still on her lips. "And you're going to keep your mouth shut unless you want to lose everything." Kiara's hands shook, but she kept her chin lifted. "I'm just here to do my job." Simone's laugh was quiet and cruel. "Your job? Let me educate you. In this world, the poor don't get believed over the pretty." Then she walked away like she hadn't just threatened a human being. Later that night, Darius returned, claiming he came to check on Donovan. He entered Donovan's room with the same friendly grin. "Bro, I've been worried," Darius said, clapping Donovan's shoulder. Donovan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where have you been?" Darius laughed it off. "Life, man. You know how it is." But Kiara stood in the corner, holding a tray, watching Darius move too comfortably, speak too smoothly, and glance too quickly down the hall, as if he was making sure Simone was still nearby. As Darius began talking about business protection and paperwork Donovan should sign, Kiara's heart sank, because she realized the affair wasn't just betrayal. It was a doorway to something darker. 3 days after Kiara overheard the library conversation, the mansion's quiet started to feel dangerous, like peace that was only pretending. Darius returned more often, always with an excuse that sounded reasonable if you didn't listen too closely. "I'm just checking on my brother. I'm helping manage the business pressure. I'm making sure nobody takes advantage of him." But Kiara noticed details. Darius never arrived alone anymore. Simone's car was often parked outside soon after, and when Donovan was asleep or exhausted, Darius would wander the house like he was measuring it. That morning, Kiara brought Donovan his breakfast tray. His face looked drawn, but his eyes were more alert than before. He was learning the new reality of his body and the new reality of people. "Did you sleep?" Kiara asked softly. "Not really," Donovan replied. "Too much on my mind." Kiara placed the tray down carefully. "You should eat, sir." Donovan watched her for a moment, then asked quietly, "Why are you still here?" Kiara paused. She could have said, "Because I need the job." She could have said, "Because Ms. Bernice asked me to." But the truth was heavier. "Because I don't want you to be alone in this," she said. Donovan's jaw tightened as if emotion irritated him, but he looked away like he didn't want her to see the gratitude hiding behind his pride. A knock came at the door. Ms. Bernice entered, followed by a woman in a sleek black blazer with a briefcase tucked under her arm. She was a black woman in her 30s, sharp-eyed, composed, and professional. Her presence alone felt like order walking into the room. "Mr. King," she said, offering a firm handshake, "I'm attorney Imani Price. Mrs. Bernice called me." Imani Price was Donovan's longtime legal counsel, known for protecting high-profile clients from fraud, messy contracts, and people who smiled while stealing. Her voice was calm, but her eyes missed nothing. Donovan nodded. "What's going on?" Imani opened her folder. "There have been unusual document requests, some changes attempted in your property structure, and 2 signatures that don't match your standard signing style." Donovan's gaze sharpened. "Who requested them?" Imani didn't answer immediately. She turned her folder slightly. "The requests came through a chain of approvals linked to your office, and a private email address." Kiara felt the air shift. Ms. Bernice's expression hardened like stone. Before anyone could speak further, the sound of laughter floated from downstairs. Simone's laugh. Kiara's stomach tightened. She excused herself and stepped into the hallway, moving toward the staircase. Halfway down, she stopped when she heard voices in the dining room. Simone's voice was sweet, teasing. "He's vulnerable right now. If you play it right, you'll get him to sign anything." Darius chuckled. "And if he won't sign?" Simone's voice dropped, colder. "Then we make sure he doesn't have a choice." Kiara's fingers curled into her palm. Darius lowered his voice. "You sure about the other part?" Simone answered without hesitation. "You think I'm going to spend my life pushing a wheelchair while he stares at walls? No. We end this. We take what's his. We leave." Kiara's breath caught. End this didn't sound like breaking up. It sounded like something irreversible. She stepped back silently, heart pounding so hard she was afraid it could be heard through her chest. Her mind raced. Should she run upstairs? Should she call Ms. Bernice? Should she confront them? She remembered Pastor Whitfield's voice. Keep wisdom close. Kiara moved quickly but quietly to the kitchen, where Ms. Bernice was sorting medication refills. Kiara's voice trembled. "Ms. Bernice, I heard them." Ms. Bernice looked up slowly. "Who?" Kiara swallowed. "Simone and Darius. They're talking about getting him to sign papers. And if he won't, They said they'll make sure he doesn't have a choice. Ms. Bernice's face went still. Then she reached for Kiara's notepad, the one she'd told Kiara to keep from the beginning. "Write down what you heard," Ms. Bernice said firmly. "Exact words, exact time." Kiara nodded, hands shaking as she scribbled the details. Ms. Bernice leaned closer, voice low but steady. "Now we tell Mr. King, calmly, and we don't accuse without proof, because people like Simone don't only lie, they perform." Kiara's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "What if they hurt him?" Ms. Bernice's voice turned into a prayer disguised as a promise. "Then God will expose it," she said, "and we will be ready." That same night, after Kiara and Ms. Bernice warned him, Donovan didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. He didn't even look surprised. He simply stared at the ceiling for a long time, silent enough that Kiara wondered if he was replaying every moment Simone had ever smiled at him. Finally, he spoke, low and controlled. "So they think I'm finished." Kiara stood near the window, hands clasped. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to bring trouble." Donovan cut her off gently, which shocked her more than anger would have. "This isn't your fault. You're the only one telling the truth in this house." Ms. Bernice folded her arms, her voice firm like a judge. "Truth needs wisdom, Mr. King. We must move carefully." Donovan nodded once. "We will." The next morning, Dr. Terence Maddox arrived for Donovan's evaluation. The rehabilitation specialist, serious, no-nonsense, and respected, set his bag down and looked Donovan in the eyes. "I heard you've been refusing the harder work," Dr. Maddox said. Donovan's jaw tightened. "I've been trying." Dr. Maddox didn't soften. "Trying is not the same as doing. Your legs may be weak, but the biggest fight is your mind. You want to walk again? Then we start today." Kiara watched Donovan's hands tremble on the armrests. For a moment she thought he'd shut down again, but then she saw it, something new behind his eyes. Resolve. Therapy became their rhythm. Painful stretches, muscle stimulation, attempts that ended in frustration. Donovan would bite his lip hard when his legs wouldn't respond, and sometimes his eyes would shine with tears he refused to let fall. Kiara stayed near, not hovering, but present. When Donovan's temper snapped, she didn't snap back. When he wanted to quit, she reminded him of what Pastor Whitfield said: "Night seasons don't last forever." 2 evenings later, Ms. Bernice drove Kiara and Donovan to church, keeping the outing discreet. The sanctuary was quiet that night, lit warmly, filled with soft worship music. Pastor Leon Whitfield, calm, steady, fatherly, met them at the front. He didn't treat Donovan like a celebrity. He treated him like a man in pain. "Mr. King," Pastor Whitfield said, shaking his hand firmly. "I'm glad you came." Donovan's voice was tight. "I don't know what I believe right now." Pastor Whitfield nodded, as if that was normal. "Faith isn't pretending you're fine. Faith is choosing to keep walking toward God, even when you're limping." Beside him, First Lady Mariah Whitfield, graceful and warm, touched Kiara's shoulder. "Baby, you look tired." Kiara's eyes watered. "I'm trying to be strong." First Lady Mariah smiled softly. "Strong people still need rest. Don't carry what God didn't ask you to carry alone." Pastor Whitfield prayed over Donovan, quiet words filled with power and peace. Donovan didn't cry, but when the prayer ended, his shoulders looked lighter, like something invisible had been lifted. Back at the mansion, Donovan called attorney Imani Price. Her voice came through the speakerphone, sharp and focused. "I can secure your accounts and freeze unauthorized transfers," Imani said. "But we need evidence strong enough that nobody can twist it. If they're planning something, we let them reveal themselves." Donovan's eyes narrowed. "So we wait." Imani replied, "We watch, we document, and we prepare." Weeks passed. Therapy began to change things. Donovan's legs responded in small ways. Tiny movements, brief strength, a spark of progress. One night, after Kiara helped him practice standing at the edge of the bed, Donovan gripped the walker and, shaking, rose. Kiara gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Donovan stood there, breathing hard, sweat on his forehead, eyes wide like he couldn't believe his own body. Then suddenly, he laughed, one short, broken sound that turned into a quiet sob he tried to hide. Kiara stepped closer, voice trembling. "You did it." Donovan wiped his face quickly, then looked at her with fierce determination. "Nobody can know." Kiara blinked. "What?" Donovan's voice dropped. "Not Simone, not Darius, not anyone who might run to them. If they think I'm still trapped, they'll show their full plan." Kiara's heart pounded. "That's dangerous." Donovan nodded once. "So is trusting the wrong people." He lowered himself back into the chair, composing his face like armor, and from that moment on, Donovan King wasn't just fighting to walk again. He was preparing to catch the wolves in his house before they could strike. The following morning, Simone returned to the mansion with a brightness that felt forced, like sunlight painted onto a storm cloud. She wore a soft pink dress and carried a gift basket as if she were auditioning for the role of devoted fiancée. Even her voice sounded sweeter. "Donovan, babe," she said, walking into his room with a smile. "I've been thinking. We've been through a lot. I want to do better." Donovan sat in his wheelchair near the window, face calm, eyes unreadable. He didn't show surprise, though Kiara, standing nearby, felt her body go tense. Simone's kindness never came without a hook. "That's good to hear," Donovan replied evenly. Simone sat on the edge of the chair across from him, leaning forward like she was confessing something holy. "I know I haven't been the easiest," she whispered, "but I love you, and I want to prove it." Kiara kept her expression neutral, but her mind screamed, "This isn't real." Simone's gaze flicked to Kiara. "I want it to be special," she added, voice still sweet. "So I'm going to cook for Donovan today, like a real home meal." Kiara's stomach tightened. Ms. Bernice's warning echoed in her head. People like Simone don't only lie, they perform. Donovan nodded slightly. "All right." Simone smiled wider, then rose smoothly. "Kiara, you can take the afternoon off from the kitchen. I want to handle this personally." Kiara lowered her eyes. "Yes." Simone left with the grace of a woman who believed she had already won. Hours passed. The mansion smelled like seasoned chicken and buttered rice. It would have felt comforting if Kiara didn't sense the danger under the aroma. She tried to focus on cleaning, but her spirit wouldn't settle. Around mid-afternoon, Pastor Leon Whitfield called Kiara. "Baby," his calm voice said through the phone, "pray over that home today. Something is not clean." Kiara's throat tightened. "Pastor, I feel it too." "Then listen," Pastor Whitfield replied. "Prayer isn't just words, it's alertness. If God nudges you, you move." When Kiara hung up, she stood still for a moment, palms sweating. Then she whispered a short prayer under her breath and walked toward the kitchen. The moment she reached the doorway, she froze. Simone was at the counter, back half turned. In her hand was a small vial. Kiara watched, heart pounding, as Simone poured a clear liquid into a bowl of sauce and stirred like she was seasoning it. Kiara's breath caught. Simone glanced over her shoulder and saw her. For a split second, Simone's face hardened. Then she forced a smile. "Oh, you're not supposed to be in here." Kiara's voice came out trembling but steady. "What did you put in that?" Simone's eyes narrowed. "Mind your business." Kiara took a slow step forward. "That's Donovan's food." Simone's smile vanished completely. Her voice dropped, sharp and threatening. You think anyone will believe you. You're the maid, the orphan, the nobody. Kiara's hands shook, but she didn't move back. God will. Simone's jaw tightened. Get out! Kiara turned as if she was obeying, but her mind was racing. Proof, wisdom, don't panic. She walked out, but not far. In the hallway, she found Ms. Bernice. Kiara's voice broke. She did it. I saw her put something in the food. Ms. Bernice's face went still. All right, we move smart. Together they went to Donovan's room. Donovan's eyes sharpened the moment Kiara spoke. It's time, Kiara whispered. She poisoned the meal. Donovan stayed calm. Too calm. Good, he said quietly. Now we catch them without giving them a way out. With Ms. Bernice's help, they called attorney Imani Price and quietly contacted security to record everything in the dining area. Donovan instructed Kiara in a low voice. When she serves, don't react, he said. Let her think she's in control. Dinner was set. Simone entered the dining room with the tray like it was a celebration. Behind her, Darius Cole appeared, smiling too confidently for a man who claimed he was only visiting. His eyes flicked to the food like he was watching a finish line. Simone set the plate in front of Donovan. For you, she said softly, to prove I still care. Kiara's hands trembled as she stood nearby. Then, quietly, quickly, Kiara switched the plates the way Ms. Bernice taught her in the kitchen. Smooth, calm, almost invisible. Simone didn't notice. Darius laughed. You first, Simone. Show him how good it is. Simone, proud and careless, lifted her fork. Darius followed. Within minutes their faces changed. Simone's smile faltered. Her hand shook. Darius's forehead beaded with sweat. A choking cough tore from Simone's throat, followed by panic. What is happening? Simone gasped, clutching her stomach. Darius staggered back, knocking his chair. Donovan! Donovan's voice turned ice cold. Call an ambulance, he said calmly, and call the police. Simone's eyes widened in horror. Donovan, please! But the performance was over, and the truth, finally, had a spotlight. Soon, sirens wailed outside. Paramedics rushed in, assessing Simone and Darius quickly, lifting them onto stretchers. Simone tried to speak, but her words came out broken. Darius kept shaking his head, muttering, This isn't supposed to happen. Ms. Bernice watched them go, her face firm, like she'd been holding a prayer in her chest for days. The moment the ambulance doors closed, attorney Imani Price arrived, sharp, composed, and moving fast. She was already on the phone, speaking with the crisp authority of someone who didn't panic. Secure the footage, she instructed the head of security. Lock the digital copies and back them up immediately. Then she turned to Donovan. Do we have everything? Donovan nodded. Kitchen camera caught the poison, dining camera caught the switch, and your paperwork evidence shows the fraud. Imani's eyes flicked to Kiara. And you're the witness who saw her add it. Kiara swallowed, forcing strength into her voice. Yes, I saw it clearly. Imani gave a single nod. That matters. A knock sounded at the front door. 2 officers entered, followed by a detective who introduced himself briefly as Detective Calvin Brooks, a tall black man with a serious face and watchful eyes. He listened without interrupting as Imani spoke, then as Donovan calmly explained the plan. Detective Brooks looked at the screen showing the footage. His jaw tightened. This is attempted murder and conspiracy, he said. We'll be questioning everyone. Before he could leave, a scream echoed from upstairs. Tasha. Kiara and Ms. Bernice rushed into the hallway and saw Tasha Hart coming down the staircase fast, clutching her phone, eyes wild. She set me up, Tasha yelled. I didn't do anything. But her trembling hands betrayed her. She tried to shove past them toward the back door. Ms. Bernice stepped in her path like a wall. "Not tonight!" Tasha spun, furious. "Move!" Security blocked the exit. Detective Brooks approached, holding out his hand. "Ma'am, give me the phone." Tasha's eyes flashed with panic. "No!" But when she tried to run, an officer caught her arm. The phone slipped from her grip and skidded across the floor. The screen lit up with messages. Too many, too fast. Proof she couldn't swallow back. Detective Brooks picked it up and looked at the notifications, expression hardening. "Tasha Hart," he said, voice firm. "You are under arrest." Kiara's chest rose and fell as she watched it happen. The lies, the bullying, the threats, finally collapsing under the weight of truth. And for the first time since she stepped into Donovan King's life, the mansion felt like it could breathe again. 2 weeks after the arrests, the courtroom downtown was packed like a headline. News cameras waited outside. Reporters whispered about the Billionaire poisoning case, and strangers filled the benches just to say they were present when the truth was finally spoken out loud. Donovan King's name had always drawn attention, but this time it wasn't about money. It was about betrayal. Donovan arrived quietly with attorney Imani Price at his side. Imani walked with the calm confidence of a woman who didn't fight with emotion. She fought with facts. Behind them came Ms. Bernice and Kiara, both dressed simply. Kiara's hands trembled as she entered, but she lifted her chin the way Pastor Whitfield taught her. Stand with truth, even when you're afraid. Simone sat at the defense table in a neat outfit, face soft, eyes glossy. She looked like she was trying to play the role of a woman who had been misunderstood. Beside her sat Darius, jaw tight, avoiding eye contact. Tasha was farther down, shaking her leg fast like her body couldn't sit still with guilt. When the hearing began, Simone stood first. "Your Honor," she said with a trembling voice, "I loved Donovan. I was under pressure. I don't even know how this happened. That girl, Kiara, she's been trying to replace me from the beginning." Kiara's stomach knotted, but Imani placed a calm hand in front of her, like a silent shield. Imani rose. "We're not here for acting," she said, voice clear. "We're here for evidence." She presented the fraudulent documents first, property transfer attempts, suspicious account moves, and a signature analysis showing Donovan's signing style didn't match the paperwork submitted. Then she called a professional document examiner to confirm the forgery. Next, Imani called Dr. Terence Maddox, the rehabilitation specialist, who explained Donovan's injury, his therapy timeline, and how recovery was possible with intense work, without revealing anything beyond what was necessary. Dr. Maddox's steady words made one thing obvious. Donovan was not weak-minded. He had been fighting. Then the moment came. Imani requested the court to view the security footage. The room went quiet as the screen played. Simone in the kitchen, pouring a clear substance into the sauce. Then another angle showed her serving the meal. Another showed the aftermath, panic, coughing, chaos. Simone's face drained of color. "That footage could be edited," Simone blurted, voice cracking. Imani didn't blink. "It isn't. It's time-stamped, backed up, and verified by security logs." The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Hart, do you deny that was you?" Simone's lips parted, but no words came. That was when Donovan slowly gripped the arms of his wheelchair, then stood. A gasp rolled through the courtroom like a wave. Donovan took one step, then another, walking forward with steady control. Cameras clicked, people whispered. Even Darius looked like his soul left his body. Donovan faced the judge, voice calm but heavy with meaning. "Your Honor, I pretended not to recover because I needed them to feel safe enough to reveal their plan." The judge's expression hardened. "So the court is looking at premeditated conspiracy?" Imani nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." In that moment, Simone's perfect mask finally cracked. Her shoulders slumped as if the truth was too heavy to hold. And Kiara, standing behind Donovan, felt tears rise, not because she wanted revenge, but because the God she prayed to had finally brought darkness into the light. 1 month after the court proceedings, the King Mansion no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a home that had survived a storm and finally found quiet again. Donovan's schedule became steady: therapy in the mornings, business meetings in the afternoons, and evenings that were no longer haunted by fake laughter and hidden threats. Attorney Imani Price kept tightening the legal protections around his assets, and Ms. Bernice ran the household with the same firm love she always had. But the biggest change wasn't in the mansion, it was in Donovan. One evening, Donovan asked Kiara to meet him on the back patio. The sun was low, painting the sky in soft orange. Kiara arrived with cautious steps, still not used to being called anywhere for something other than work. Donovan stood near the railing, leaning lightly on his cane, walking on his own now, but still rebuilding strength. "Kiara," he said, voice quieter than usual. "Yes, sir?" Donovan turned fully toward her. "Stop calling me that." Kiara blinked. "I'm sorry, it's just habit." He shook his head. "You've earned the right to say my name." Kiara swallowed. "Donovan." He nodded, as if hearing it healed something. Then his expression shifted into seriousness. "I owe you an apology." Kiara's eyes widened. "For what?" "For thinking love was fake," Donovan said. "For assuming you had an agenda. For not protecting you sooner when Simone started attacking you." He paused, jaw tightening. "I let my past make me unfair." Kiara's throat burned. "You were hurt. You were afraid." Donovan stepped closer. "And you still stayed." His voice dropped. "You didn't stay for money because I wasn't giving you luxury. You stayed when I was in a wheelchair. You stayed when you were insulted. You stayed when you could have walked away and nobody would have blamed you." Kiara's eyes filled with tears. "I stayed because it was right." Donovan's gaze softened. "That's the kind of woman I prayed for, without knowing how to pray." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple velvet box. No cameras, no crowd, just truth. "Kiara Wells," he said, steady and sincere. "Will you marry me, not as a reward, not as a rescue story, but as my partner, my family?" Kiara covered her mouth, tears slipping free. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Donovan." From the doorway, Ms. Bernice pressed a hand to her chest and smiled like a mother watching prayer come true. A few weeks later, the wedding happened, elegant, joyful, and unforgettable. Pastor Leon Whitfield stood at the altar, calm and proud, while First Lady Mariah Whitfield held Kiara's hands like she was placing a daughter into her future. The vows weren't about wealth. They were about faith, patience, and choosing each other even when life wasn't easy. After the celebration, Donovan and Kiara announced something even bigger: the Wells and King Foundation, a program dedicated to helping young adults aging out of foster care. It would provide safe housing, education support, job training, and mentoring, so no one would have to be thrown into the world hungry and alone the way Kiara once was. 5 years later, laughter filled the mansion again. Real laughter. Their son, Malachi King, ran through the halls with bright eyes and boundless energy, holding a toy car in his hand. Donovan lifted him up easily now, strong again, smiling in a way that looked like peace had finally settled in his bones. Then one afternoon, a quiet knock came at the door. Ms. Bernice opened it and stiffened, then stepped aside. Simone stood there. She looked different. No flashy outfit, no proud posture, just a simple dress and tired eyes that held remorse instead of arrogance. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Simone said softly. I found God in the lowest place of my life. and I came to ask for forgiveness." Donovan stood still for a long moment, then nodded. "Accountability changed you," he said. "That's important." Kiara stepped forward, gentle but firm. "We forgive you," she said, "but never forget what your choices taught us." Simone's eyes watered. "Thank you," she whispered. "I won't." She left quietly, no drama, no performance, just a woman walking away with humility. And as the door closed, Kiara looked at Donovan and smiled. Their beginning had been painful, but because they chose faith, sacrifice, and perseverance, it became a beautiful destiny. This story teaches that real love is not proven by words, gifts, or public appearances. It is proven by loyalty during suffering. Donovan had money, power, and influence, yet his hardest season revealed something wealth can't buy: true character. Simone and Darius showed that selfish hearts will pretend to care as long as there is something to gain, but when life becomes difficult, their true intentions rise to the surface. Kiara, however, showed a different kind of strength: faith, patience, and sacrifice. She stayed when it was uncomfortable, chose wisdom over anger, and protected Donovan without expecting rewards. The story also teaches that pain from the past can poison the present if it is not healed. Donovan's childhood trauma made him suspicious of love, but Kiara's steady kindness helped him learn that not everyone is like the people who hurt him before. Finally, the story shows that God can expose hidden evil and restore what was broken. Forgiveness is powerful, but it does not cancel accountability. Wrongdoing has consequences. The greatest lesson is this: choose people who stand with you in hard times, and be the kind of person who stands for what is right. I'd love to hear from you watching this story. Who's your favorite character so far? Donovan, Kiara, Ms. Bernice, or Pastor Whitfield? And what do you honestly think about Simone and Darius? Are they pure evil, or do you think there's a reason behind their behavior? If you were in Kiara's position, would you have stayed in that mansion or left the moment the bullying started? Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me which scene hit you the most so far. Goodbye for now, Mr. Hope fans. See you in the next chapter.